El mundo del marketing se activa para ti. Marketing activo. Marketing activo.
We are with Gary Whitehill for our second part of this interview. And we're going to continue in English. The ones that missed the first part, we recommend to watch that one first. Maybe you can understand better what we're going to talk about it right now. We stop on conscious capitalism, and what do you think on this kind of take serious every single sentence that you gave you, and please remember the persons on the audience, what is your main sentence, because I think we need to all the time think about it to set up our focus, our purpose in life. Remember us your sentence first.
I believe I believe that humans deserve better. That's it. It's really that simple, right? I really believe that we deserve better lives than what we've been placed into, or in many cases forced into.
Mm-hmm. So after or from that sentence, you have traveled. We talk about that. You've seen a lot.
Sure.
And what do you see from here? What are you taking from Ecuador to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, what's frustrating is many traditional cultures, not just in Latin America, but in places, in Africa, for instance, there is a very nonchalant, laid-back type of way of doing business or thinking about life. And so a lot of times what happens when I get up on stage and I talk about these things in a serious manner is that folks think I'm angry, or they think, why is he so serious? Well, the fact of the matter is, this is not telenovela. This is life today is not a reality show. That's what the powers that be want you to think it is. And let's just dance and party and everything's going to be great. Let's be on Instagram. In reality, all that's doing is further exploiting us away from our humanity and getting us less and less towards being able to get better, be better, and achieve better. And so today, it's very, very serious. It's not just serious for each of us individually, it's serious for our nations, and it's serious for the world. The world, for all lack of a better phrase, is dying. I mean, nature doesn't lie, right? And so when I get up on stage and I start talking, boom, ba-boom, 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 point by point by point. Yes, I'm a gringo. It's true. And gringos have a different culture of how we explain ourselves.
Yeah.
But I get up and I'm here today with you sharing these insights in a serious manner, bluntly, about the reality of today, because if I'm not doing it, if somebody's not talking to you about what's really going on and the seriousness of it, and they're not being serious about it, who are you supposed to trust? Who are you supposed to look towards? Who are you supposed to believe? You're going to believe the politicians who want this country to go back 60 years? You're going to believe the business people who only care about exploiting resources, not having value-added services that can be reinvested in the communities to make them better?
And do you think that happens because the lack of conscience? The lack of conscience on, I don't want to say ignorance, but the lack of conscience of, like, if I do this, it might, it's not gonna be a better world for my children, for my, next generations, that I am responsible. Like, do you think there's a lack of conscience there?
There's a lack of unconsciousness. I would absolutely agree with you. In most cases, in most countries, not just Ecuador, once again, it's not done intentionally. Folks aren't numbing out on telenovela simply because they say, you know what, I'm going to watch this, and I know that this is going to not allow me to be a rational, critical thinking, informed human being. That's not what folks are doing. In fact, subconsciously, the reason Latinas are so obsessed with things like telenovela is because of all the violence they're actually surrounded by. Culturally, divorcing themselves from the culture and the heritage that they come from. Structurally, right? Where the institutions achieve the opposite of their original intention. And I'm not even going to start going down the gender violence that happens to women, right? And the patriarchy and the machoism that happens in Latin America. And that's why folks do it. But the challenge today is that reasoning, that line of reasoning, has now become more of an excuse than ever before. Because things aren't getting better in the world. They're getting worse. And they're only going to get worse before they get much better. So we can continue down this spiral downward and make the excuse and think I'm angry and not like that I'm serious about these things. Or you can realize that somebody is here who cares, that's informed, who's built businesses, who's advised governments all over the world, who's traveled the 5 continents, has seen every first, second, third world and war zone situation you could ever imagine, and who is just trying to help and be a guiding path. I don't have any agenda besides humans deserve better. That's what I believe. That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm here.
When we talk, when I ask you about conscious capitalism, you don't believe in it. Basically,
Sure.
For you, it doesn't match. Conscious
Correct.
with any ism.
Correct.
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 And but at the same time, I might ask you, where this conscience, individual conscience that we're talking,
Yep.
to change this stuff,
Yep.
to change what we're looking at, to change how we live now, and get us to a point,
Sure.
a better point,
Correct.
at least, how we how we build the path, how we get this unconscious conscience.
Yeah. So how do you take the unconscious and make it conscious?
Make it conscious.
Yeah. It's a great question.
And a lot of rationalism.
Yeah. I mean, once again, this is not something that's talked about in schools, right?
Exactly.
And there's
That's
a
why I'm
reason.
asking,
There's a reason why,
Exactly.
right? I mean,
And I don't think for at this point, is not a secret for everybody.
correct. I mean, this is just common sense. People know that school has nothing to do with the real world. That's just how it is. And it's done that way by design intentionally. And that's the thing. The powers that be, who want to do what they want to do, whatever their agenda is, are extremely, finitely, acutely intentional in how they continue to manipulate and exploit and force Ecuadorians, Nigerians, Americans, Chinese, you name the country. Everybody's getting exploited in one way or another. Now, that's always going to happen because we're sheep, right? There's only 2% of people that drive most of the change in the world. This is scientifically proven, right? Most people are sheep. They want to follow somebody else. But the fact of the matter is, as my mom says, when is enough enough? It's that simple. Nothing's always going to be fair or equal. And anybody that talks about fairness and equality, they're uninformed how nature works. Because nature, you go to the rainforest and the jungle out here, nature is extremely ruthless. But it's extremely ruthless only to a point. Once a tree gets up and it gets its sun, it stops growing. It says, I got my sun. That's all I need.
That's all I need.
How many times do you see a 1,000-foot tree? You don't. So why is it that we have billionaires, right? So it's the level of exploitation, the level of ruthlessness, the level of control that is the fundamental underlying issue.
Where do you stop once you get, because there's a sentence, it's money calls money.
Anybody who's a billionaire is owned by somebody else because they made a deal with somebody. Everybody who's a billionaire is propped up by somebody else. You don't get to be there, just like you don't get to be the president of a country, by always doing the right thing. It's impossible because the nihilism within these systems, the forces within these systems, the vitriol within these systems, and that's once again the problem with today. This is a point in Africa, right? There's no second and third generation wealth in Africa. It's because somebody will create a business, normally a monopoly, and what will happen is they'll blow out any other opportunity for diversity in the business community by having that monopoly, and then the second generation comes in and just blows all the money.
Because they didn't know how to construct.
Because they don't have responsibility, they don't have accountability, they don't have vision, they don't have values. What I love about some of Japanese culture, and there's some of this actually in Ecuador, where you have third, fourth, fifth. When I was at Mujeres por Ecuador, there was a lady who is running a fourth generation, fully integrated clothing company.
Yeah,
from
yes.
picking the cotton all the way through the brick and mortar stores.
Yes.
Right? She's not building just a commodity. She's not just doing the brick and mortar. She's doing the whole value chain, creating jobs, and this company has been around for generations.
Yes.
That is a true form of wealth. Because at every layer, she's adding value to communities. At every layer, she sees the business from a fundamentally dynamic perspective. She's not just exploiting a part of it. The business has been built and grown with values that understands all the stakeholders and allows everybody to win to some degree, right? This is bartering. That's what business is. Bartering in a lot of ways, right? With different agendas and things. And the only way you do not end up making a deal with the devil at some point is having values. And most of the time, the folks who are billionaires, look where they come from. They come from already rich families who already feel entitled, who already had more opportunity than any of us, okay? The fact of the matter is, there's only one difference between rich people and poor people. Rich people have money, and that money allows them to screw up hundreds of times more than you and I. You and I get 1 or 2 or 3 shots. And if we're not intentional in those 1 or 2 or 3 shots, you might as well kiss all our opportunity goodbye. Rich people can do whatever they want, right? They can break laws. They can do certain things to kids, right? We know all of these things that happen in this country and happen all around this world. And that's the only difference. Now, what we focus on, because we're taught this, we're indoctrinated with this, is that everything's going to be fine once you get money. It's going to be great. Last time I checked, Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls, smart dude, got killed when he was 26, right? One of the most famous rappers in the history of the world. He said, more money, more problems. I can promise you, as a kid who comes from a town with more cows than people, 1 stoplight, 2 parents that never went to college. I'm the first person in the history of my family to go to college. I didn't have anything, right? My mom was a file clerk. My dad was a chef. When I built businesses, I was successful living in New York City. My ego is what got me, because I had never had this stuff before. I had never had certain types of access before. But what you end up realizing, hopefully at some point, is it's all fake. What's not fake is this. What's not fake is human connection. What's not fake is values. What's not fake is the fact that you care about designing the world better for your children and your grandchildren, and you believe in doing it from a community-based perspective, not just for you, because you don't build a business for yourself. It's about everybody but you. And that's what I had to learn the hard way as somebody that came from not too much. Sure, I'm a white American male, right? Let's call it out. I still had more privilege than most folks.
And even your last name, Whitehill.
Correct, right? So I did grow up with some privileges. Whiteness in and of itself is a privilege.
It's a privilege, yeah.
But once again, the reason I'm here, the reason I do what I do, the reason I travel the world and put my life at risk at all the times that I do, going to Afghanistan, going to crazy places in Nigeria, is because I feel an obligation, knowing what I know and with the privilege that I have, to do better. And that's the difference. The way we change that is, how do you make the stock market irrelevant in the 21st century? That's the question you have to start with. Because the stock market is the problem. Every time you invest in stocks, every time you invest in wealth managers, the stock market is just one big Ponzi scheme. And it's been that way forever. So that's where you start the question, because it's a fundamental, philosophical, structural level issue that gets shown and morphed and exploited at the company level. And that's the problem a lot of times when it comes to these fundamental changes, whether it's economically, politically, socially in a country like Ecuador. Because folks aren't able to take the risks because of social things, because of the level of poverty, because of racism, whatever it is, the opportunity to take risks, to talk about how to make something irrelevant, or talking about how to leapfrog certain constraints. The opportunity to actually do that is about this big here, right? And so you better be perfect in asking the right question that has the right information, that brings together the right people to get the right outcomes. The level and the opportunity is there. The opportunity is huge, but the opportunity to screw any of that up is this big. While in other places where there are different types of social structures, different types of knowledge and information and risk levels, you can screw up that much. And so, I say that sincerely, that most of the things that we point the fingers at, we point the finger at a president, we point the finger at a parliament, we point a finger at a company. They're all byproducts. They're all byproducts of wrongly designed structures.
This is why is business a war?
Business.
Because that's one of your sentences too.
Correct. That's exactly right.
We said we're going to address that.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
topic too. Is this why a business a war?
Well, look, there's when I say that, everybody immediately thinks economics. Business war.
Yeah, especially when you're negotiating and
Correct.
you have the competition and blah blah blah. Yeah.
But there's two sides to business. There's subjective parts to the business, and there's objective sides of the business. And the subjective, the vision, mission, values, story of the business, why it was created, why it exists, is then what drives the objective. What products and services? What market are we going into? How are we scaling? How are we monetizing? All of the fundamental things that you can basically put in a spreadsheet are a byproduct of doing the right intangible cultural-based things first. So when I talk about business being a war, it's money, once again, is a byproduct. It's not about how much money you make, how quickly. It's how disciplined are you? And last time I checked, if you really look in the mirror, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, very few of us, including me, you cannot honestly say that you're at least 80%, 90% disciplined in creating wealth in all of those 5 buckets. Because humans are imperfect by design. We do the best that we can, almost always. Sure, there's vicious people, but 99% of the world is just people trying to do the right things for the right reasons. But sometimes, as I said in the other part of the interview, sometimes you have to have a realistic accountability and responsibility to yourself, to your family, to being happy and healthy and wanting to take care of your family. And that's the only way you're going to do it.
Thanks for watching, and we continue on in another part with Gary Whitehill right here.
Marketing activo, marketing activo, marketing activo. Visítanos en www.marketingactivo.com.